As the chant grew louder, Ya raised her arms toward the sky, and a shimmering veil of dark mist began to coalesce above the altar. The mist twisted and writhed, taking on eerie shapes that seemed to reach out toward the living world. It was clear that Ya was attempting to summon powerful spirits to aid her in her coup. With a deep breath, Amma stepped out from her hiding place and moved toward the altar. The next morning, Amma awoke with a sense of dread heavy in her chest. The events of the previous night played over and over in her mind, and the weight of the decision she had to make hung over her like a dark cloud. She had to warn the queen, but with Ya watching her every move, it would be nearly impossible. As she went about her daily tasks, Amma noticed the tension in the palace growing. The servants whispered to one another in hushed tones, the guards were on edge, and even the queen herself seemed troubled. It was clear that something was brewing, something dark and dangerous. Amma knew she had to find a way to get to the queen, but she also knew that she couldn't do it alone. She needed help, someone she could trust. But who? The palace was full of people, but Amma had always kept to herself, never forming close bonds with anyone. As she mulled over her options, Amma remembered Kofi, one of the younger guards who had always been kind to her. Kofi was different from the others. He was gentle, with a warm smile and a kind heart. He had often helped Amma with her chores, and they had exchanged friendly conversations over the years. Amma knew that if she could trust anyone, it would be Kofi. But the risk was great. If Ya found out that Amma was conspiring with someone, it could mean both their lives. Still, Amma knew she had no other choice. She had to take the risk, for the sake of the queen and the kingdom. That evening, after the palace had quieted down, Amma made her way to the guards' quarters. She found Kofi sitting alone, sharpening his spear. When he saw her approach, he smiled and stood up, but his smile faded when he saw the fear in her eyes. "Amma, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice full of concern. Amma looked around to make sure no one was listening, then took a deep breath. "Kofi, I need your help," she whispered. "Something terrible is happening in the palace, and I don't know who else to turn to." Kofi frowned, his brow furrowing with worry. "What do you mean? What's going on?" Amma quickly told him everything, the wig, the spirits, the conspiracy, and Ya's threats. Kofi listened intently, his expression growing more serious with each passing moment. When she finished, Kofi let out a low whistle. "Amma, this is dangerous. If Ya is involved, we're dealing with something far more sinister than just a plot against the queen. She's a powerful woman, and she has many loyal followers in the palace." Amma nodded, her heart sinking. "I know, Kofi. But I can't just stand by and do nothing. The spirits warned me that the queen is in danger. I have to do something." Kofi was silent for a moment, his eyes filled with concern. Then, with a determined look, he nodded. "All right, Amma. I'll help you. But we have to be careful. We can't let Ya know that we're onto her." Amma felt a surge of relief wash over her. She wasn't alone anymore. With Kofi by her side, she felt a glimmer of hope. Together, they began to formulate a plan. Kofi suggested that they gather more information before approaching the queen. They needed proof of the conspiracy, something that would convince the queen of the danger she was in. Over the next few days, Amma and Kofi worked in secret, carefully observing Ya and her followers. They noticed that Ya often met with a small group of advisors late at night, and that these meetings were always held in the most secluded parts of the palace. Amma also continued to listen to the spirits, who guided her and warned her of impending danger. The more she learned, the more she realized just how deep the conspiracy ran. It wasn't just about overthrowing the queen, it was about seizing power and plunging the entire kingdom into darkness. As the days passed, Amma and Kofi grew closer, their bond strengthened by the danger they faced together. But as they got closer to uncovering the truth, the risks grew greater. Ya's watchful eyes were always on them, and they knew that one wrong move could be their last. Finally, the night came when they decided to make their move. Amma had overheard Ya talking about a meeting with her followers in the sacred chamber, the very chamber where the wig was kept. Amma and Kofi knew that this was their chance to gather the proof they needed. Under the cover of darkness, they made their way to the sacred chamber, their hearts pounding with fear and anticipation. As they approached the door, they could hear voices inside, Ya's voice, cold and commanding, and the murmurs of her followers. Amma and Kofi exchanged a tense glance, then carefully pressed their ears to the door, listening to the conversation inside. What they heard confirmed their worst fears. Ya was planning to perform a dark ritual, one that would summon malevolent spirits to overthrow the queen and take control of the kingdom. The wig, they realized, was the key to the ritual, a powerful artifact that could bridge the world of the living and the dead. Amma's blood ran cold as she listened to Ya's plans. She knew now that they were out of time. They had to warn the queen, and they had to do it now. But just as they were about to leave, the door to the sacred chamber creaked open, and Ya stepped out, her eyes locking onto Amma and Kofi with a look of pure malice. Amma's heart nearly stopped as Ya's piercing gaze fell upon them. The advisor's cold, calculating eyes were filled with an unmistakable intensity that sent a chill down Amma's spine. Kofi instinctively stepped in front of Amma, his hand gripping the hilt of his spear. Ya's lips curled into a sinister smile. "I see you've been busy, Amma," she said, her voice dripping with malice. "And it seems you've brought a friend along. How delightful." Amma's mind raced, desperately trying to think of a way to escape. "My lady," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, we were looking for." Ya cut her off with a sharp gesture. "Save your lies, Amma. I know what you've been up to. You're in over your head." Before Amma could respond, Ya snapped her fingers, and two palace guards appeared from the shadows, their expressions stern and unyielding. They flanked Ya, their eyes fixed on Amma and Kofi with cold indifference. "Take them to the dungeon," Ya ordered, her voice leaving no room for argument. "We'll deal with them later." Amma's heart pounded in her chest as the guards approached, their heavy footsteps echoing through the corridor. She could see the determination in Kofi's eyes, a silent promise that they wouldn't go down without a fight. As the guards led them away, Amma's mind raced with fear and desperation. How could they have been so careless? The plan had been to gather evidence, not to get caught. But now, they were trapped, and their chances of warning the queen were slipping away with each step. The dungeon was a cold, dark place, filled with the scent of damp stone and the distant echoes of dripping water. Amma and Kofi were thrown into a small, grimy cell, the heavy door slamming shut behind them with a deafening clang. Amma sank to the floor, her heart sinking as she looked around the dark cell. "What are we going to do?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We're running out of time." Kofi knelt beside her, his expression grim but resolute. "We'll find a way out," he said, his voice steady. "We have to. The queen's life is at stake." Amma nodded, trying to steel herself. They couldn't afford to give up now. She took a deep breath and scanned the cell for any possible means of escape. The walls were solid, the door was locked tight, and there were no windows. It seemed like an impossible situation, but Amma refused to lose hope. As she thought, a faint glimmer of light caught her eye. It came from a small crack in the wall, just above the floor. The crack was barely noticeable, but it seemed to lead somewhere. Amma crawled over to it, her fingers brushing against the rough stone. "Kofi," she whispered, "look at this. There's a crack in the wall. It might be our only chance." Kofi joined her, peering at the crack with interest. "It's worth a try," he said. "But we'll need something to widen it. Do you have any tools?" Amma shook her head. "I don't have anything. But maybe." As she searched her pockets, she found a small piece of metal, a hairpin she had used to secure her hair. It wasn't much, but it might be enough to pry open the crack. Amma handed it to Kofi, who examined it with a thoughtful expression. "It's better than nothing," Kofi said. He began working on the crack, carefully using the hairpin to widen it. The work was slow and tedious, but the small piece of metal made a difference. As the minutes ticked by, Amma could hear distant noises from the palace above, the murmurs of voices, the clinking of metal, and the occasional burst of laughter. The sounds were a stark reminder of the danger they faced. Yas' ritual would be performed soon, and if they didn't escape, they wouldn't be able to warn the queen in time. Finally, after what felt like hours, Kofi managed to pry the crack open just enough to see through. The gap revealed a narrow tunnel, leading away from the dungeon. It was a tight squeeze, but it looked like it might be their way out. "We have to go through this," Kofi said, his voice filled with determination. "It's our only chance." Amma nodded, her fear giving way to hope. She took a deep breath and squeezed through the crack, followed closely by Kofi. The tunnel was dark and damp, and the air was thick with dust. They crawled carefully, trying to make as little noise as possible. The tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, winding through the bowels of the palace. Every so often, they would hear footsteps or voices, and they would hold their breath, pressing themselves against the walls until the sounds faded away. Eventually, they reached the end of the tunnel, which opened into a small, hidden chamber. Amma and Kofi emerged, their clothes dirty and their faces covered in grime. They took a moment to catch their breath and assess their surroundings. The chamber was filled with old furniture and dusty relics, but it also had a small window that looked out onto the palace grounds. Amma peered through the window, her heart racing as she saw the sun setting over the kingdom. Time was running out. "We need to get to the queen's chambers," Amma said urgently. "We have to warn her before it's too late." Kofi nodded, and together they made their way out of the hidden chamber. They navigated through the palace, avoiding guards, and taking the most direct route to the queen's quarters. As they approached the queen's chambers, Amma's heart pounded with anticipation. They had to act quickly, before Yas' plans could come to fruition. The palace was eerily quiet, and the sense of danger was palpable. Finally, they reached the door to the queen's chambers. Amma took a deep breath and knocked softly, hoping that someone inside would hear them. The door opened a crack, and a worried-looking maid peeked out. "Amma, what are you doing here?" "Please, let us in," Amma said urgently. "We need to speak with the queen immediately." The maid hesitated, then opened the door wider, allowing Amma and Kofi to enter. Inside, Queen Efua was seated at her vanity, her expression troubled. She looked up as Amma and Kofi entered, her eyes filled with concern. "What is the meaning of this?" the queen asked, her voice calm but firm. "Why have you come here at this hour?" Amma took a deep breath and began to explain everything, her discovery of the wig, the spirit's warnings, Yas' conspiracy, and the plan to overthrow the queen. She spoke quickly and urgently, her words tumbling out in a frantic rush. The queen listened intently, her expression growing more serious with each passing moment. When Amma finished, there was a heavy silence in the room. The queen's eyes were thoughtful, her brow furrowed in concentration. "This is a grave matter indeed," Queen Efua said finally. "If what you say is true, then we are in great danger. But we must act carefully. Ya is powerful and has many allies in the palace." Amma nodded, her heart filled with a mix of hope and fear. "What should we do, Your Majesty?" The queen's eyes met Amma's with a look of determination. "We must expose the conspiracy and stop Yas' ritual. But we must be careful not to alert her before we are ready. I will gather my most trusted advisors, and we will come up with a plan." Amma and Kofi exchanged relieved glances. The queen's response was a glimmer of hope in their darkest hour. They had managed to reach her, and now they had a chance to stop the impending disaster. As they waited for the queen's advisors to arrive, Amma's thoughts raced with worry and anticipation. The fate of the kingdom was hanging in the balance, and the fight to save it was only beginning. The queen's advisors arrived quickly, their faces serious and determined. Queen Efua briefed them on the situation, and the room was soon filled with hushed discussions and strategic planning. Amma and Kofi stood to the side, their nerves on edge as they waited to see what would happen next. The advisors were a diverse group, men and women from different backgrounds, each bringing their own expertise to the table. They included Ease, the wise old scholar, Nia, the queen's trusted messenger, and Kwame, the head of the palace guards. Each advisor listened carefully to Ama's account and offered their own insights. Ease, with his deep-set eyes and silver beard, was the first to speak. If Yah has indeed planned a ritual involving the spirits, we must act swiftly. The ritual will require certain items and preparations. We need to find out what exactly she is planning and gather the necessary evidence. Nia nodded, her face resolute. I can use my network of informants to gather information about Yah's movements. We need to know where and when the ritual will take place. Kwame, with his stern demeanor and sharp eyes, added, and I will increase the guards' vigilance. We must be prepared for any attempts by Yah's followers to disrupt our efforts. Queen Efua looked at Ama and Kofi, her eyes filled with gratitude. You have done a great service to the kingdom. We will need your help in the coming days. Your knowledge of Yah's plans will be crucial. Ama nodded, her heart swelling with a mix of relief and determination. I will do whatever it takes to help. With the plan set in motion, the advisors began to coordinate their efforts. Nia set out to gather information from her network, He started researching ancient texts for clues about the ritual, and Kwame organized additional patrols around the palace. Ama and Kofi were given a temporary place to stay within the palace, a small but comfortable room that provided them with a sense of safety amidst the chaos. They used this time to rest and prepare for the challenges ahead. But even as they tried to relax, Ama's mind was consumed with worry. The spirit's warnings echoed in her thoughts, and the weight of their mission hung heavy on her shoulders. The stakes were high, and every decision they made could mean the difference between victory and disaster. That night, as Ama lay in bed, she found it difficult to sleep. The events of the day replayed in her mind, and the shadow of Yah's conspiracy loomed over her thoughts. She was determined to see this through, but the fear of what might happen kept her awake. Kofi, sensing her restlessness, sat beside her and offered words of comfort. Ama, we're doing the right thing. The queen needs us, and we can't let our fear stop us from helping. Ama looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Kofi. I don't know what I would do without you. Kofi smiled, his eyes warm and reassuring. We're in this together. We'll get through it. The next day, as the sun rose over the kingdom, the sense of urgency grew stronger. Nia returned with crucial information about Yah's plans, and Ease uncovered important details about the ritual's requirements. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place, but there was still much work to be done. Ama and Kofi continued to assist the advisors, their efforts focused on uncovering the full extent of Yah's plot. They spent long hours in discussion and planning, their every move carefully calculated to avoid detection. Despite the danger, Ama felt a growing sense of purpose. The weight of the mission was still heavy, but she was no longer overwhelmed by fear. With each passing day, she grew more confident in her ability to make a difference. The time for action was approaching, and Ama knew that the next few days would be critical. They had to be prepared for anything, and they had to act quickly to stop Yah's ritual and save the kingdom. As the sun set on another tense day, Ama and Kofi stood by a window overlooking the palace grounds. The air was thick with anticipation, and the shadows of the past seemed to converge on the present moment. The battle for the kingdom was far from over, and Ama knew that the real challenges were yet to come. But with determination in her heart and the support of her allies, she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The fate of Uda rested in her hands, and she would not falter. The days leading up to the ritual were filled with a palpable sense of tension. Ama and Kofi, now deeply integrated into the Queen's inner circle, worked tirelessly to piece together the final details of Yah's dark plot. The advisors had identified the time and location for the ritual, a secluded grove near the palace where ancient rites had been performed for centuries. The grove was surrounded by dense forest and was known for its eerie beauty, a place where the veil between the living and the dead was said to be thin. It was the perfect setting for Ya's sinister plans, and Amma knew that stopping the ritual would be their only chance to save the queen and the kingdom. Each day, Amma and Kofi worked alongside the queen's advisors, preparing for the confrontation they knew was inevitable. They carefully studied Ya's known associates and planned their approach with meticulous detail. Kwame's guards were stationed strategically around the palace, ready to respond to any disturbance. Despite the growing confidence in their plan, Amma felt a lingering unease. The spirits continued to offer cryptic warnings and guidance, their messages often leaving her more confused than reassured. Yet, she remained steadfast, knowing that the safety of her kingdom depended on her resolve. On the eve of the ritual, the atmosphere was electric with apprehension. Amma and Kofi, having prepared as best they could, were now ready for the final act. They were to accompany a small team of elite guards led by Kwame to the grove, where they would thwart Ya's plan and protect the queen. As night fell, the palace seemed unusually quiet, as if holding its breath in anticipation. Amma and Kofi donned dark cloaks to blend in with the shadows and moved stealthily through the corridors. The grove was located at the edge of the forest, and they had to navigate a series of hidden paths to avoid detection. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting long, eerie shadows that danced across the forest floor. Amma's heart pounded in her chest as they approached the grove, the gravity of their mission weighing heavily on her. Kofi walked beside her, his expression a mask of determination. The grove was illuminated by a flickering fire that cast a ghostly glow over the clearing. In the center, a large stone altar stood, adorned with strange symbols and offerings. Ya was there, surrounded by her loyal followers, their faces hidden beneath dark hoods. Amma and Kofi, along with Kwame and the guards, took up their positions in the surrounding forest, concealed by the dense foliage. They watched as Ya began the ritual, chanting in a low, ominous voice. The air crackled with dark energy, and Amma could feel the weight of the spirit's presence. The ritual was underway, and Amma knew they had to act quickly. She signaled to Kwame, who gave a silent command to his guards. The team moved into position, ready to disrupt the ritual and confront Ya. As the chant grew louder, Ya raised her arms toward the sky, and a shimmering veil of dark mist began to coalesce above the altar. The mist twisted and writhed, taking on eerie shapes that seemed to reach out toward the living world. It was clear that Ya was attempting to summon powerful spirits to aid her in her coup. With a deep breath, Amma stepped out from her hiding place and moved toward the altar. Her heart raced, but she focused on her goal. She could see Ya's followers beginning to stir, their heads turning toward the intruders with shock and alarm. Kofi followed closely behind, his spear at the ready. Kwame and his guards spread out to flank Ya's followers, engaging them in a fierce battle to protect the sacred space and prevent the ritual from continuing. Amma's presence did not go unnoticed. Ya's eyes widened in fury as she saw Amma advancing toward her. "How dare you?" Ya's voice thundered, filled with rage. "You will not interfere with my plans." Amma's resolve hardened. "It's over, Ya. We know what you're planning, and we won't let you succeed." Ya's expression twisted into a sneer as she raised her hands, calling upon the spirits to aid her. The mist above the altar swirled violently, and ghostly figures began to materialize, their eyes glowing with malevolent intent. Amma could feel the weight of the spirit's presence pressing down on her. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the wig, the very source of her own power to see and communicate with the spirits. Holding it tightly, she called upon the spirits for aid. "Spirits of the past, hear me," Amma cried out. "We need your help to stop this dark ritual and save our kingdom." The air grew colder, and the mist began to shift and change. The spirits, sensing Amma's call, began to coalesce around her, their forms taking on familiar and reassuring shapes. They swirled around her, their presence a comforting shield against Ya's dark magic. Ya, realizing that her plan was faltering, glared at Amma with intense hatred. "You think you can stop me with your petty tricks? I will not be thwarted." The ritual's energy grew chaotic, the dark mist swirling uncontrollably as the spirits clashed with Ya's malevolent forces. The grove was filled with an otherworldly light and sound, a tumultuous battle between the forces of good and evil. Amma fought with all her strength, her determination fueled by the desire to protect her queen and her kingdom. She felt the spirit's power flowing through her, guiding her and lending her strength. Kofi fought valiantly by her side, his spear cutting through the chaos with precision. Kwame and the guards engaged Yas' followers, their disciplined efforts preventing them from reinforcing their leader. Despite their best efforts, Yas' power was formidable. She fought fiercely, her dark magic crackling with energy as she attempted to complete the ritual. The struggle was intense, and it seemed that the outcome was uncertain. Amma knew that they needed to act quickly to turn the tide. She glanced at the altar, where the dark mist was at its most concentrated. With a surge of determination, she moved toward it, the wig in her hand glowing with an otherworldly light. Ye noticed her approach and screamed in fury. "No. You cannot." Amma raised the wig high and called upon the spirits once more. "Spirits, we need your strength to break this dark magic and protect our world." The spirits responded with a powerful force, their energy flooding the grove and clashing with Yas' dark magic. The mist began to dissipate, and the ghostly figures that Ye had summoned were pushed back into the ether. Yas' power faltered, her control over the ritual slipping away. She fell to her knees, her face twisted in a mask of rage and defeat. The dark mist dissipated, and the grove returned to its natural state, the eerie glow fading into the darkness of the night. Amma and Kofi, exhausted but triumphant, stood over Ya, their breath coming in ragged gasps. Kwame and the guards secured the area, ensuring that Yas' followers were detained and that the ritual could not be completed. The queen's presence was soon felt, as she and her advisors arrived at the grove. Her eyes were filled with relief and gratitude as she saw Amma and Kofi. "You have done it," Queen Efua said, her voice filled with emotion. "You have saved the kingdom from a terrible fate. I am forever grateful." Amma nodded, her heart swelling with a mix of relief and pride. "We could not have done it without your guidance and the support of the spirits." The queen's eyes softened as she looked at Amma and Kofi. "You have shown great bravery and loyalty. The kingdom owes you a debt of gratitude." As the night wore on, the grove was restored to its peaceful state. The spirits that had aided Amma began to fade, their work done. The battle had been won, but the struggle was far from over. Amma and Kofi, though weary, felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had faced great danger and emerged victorious, but the events of the night had left them with much to ponder. The kingdom was safe, for now, but the shadows of the past still lingered, and there were more challenges ahead. With the defeat of Ya and her dark ritual, the kingdom of Uda began to recover from the night's ordeal. The queen's victory was celebrated throughout the palace and the surrounding villages, and the atmosphere was filled with a renewed sense of hope and unity. Amma and Kofi, though exhausted from their efforts, were hailed as heroes. The queen honored them with a special ceremony, acknowledging their bravery and dedication. They were given new responsibilities and roles within the palace, their contributions recognized and valued. As the days passed, Amma found herself reflecting on the events that had transpired. The power of the wig, the spirit's guidance, and the courage she had discovered within herself had all played a part in the kingdom's salvation. She knew that the journey was not over, and that there would be more challenges ahead. The queen, now more vigilant than ever, worked to ensure that such threats would not arise again. She strengthened the palace's defenses and sought to uncover any remaining traces of dark magic. Amma and Kofi continued to assist her, their new roles allowing them to make a positive impact on the kingdom. Amma's relationship with Kofi deepened, their bond forged through their shared experiences. They became close friends, their trust and understanding of each other growing stronger with each passing day. Their shared mission had brought them together, and their partnership continued to thrive. One evening, as the sun set over the kingdom, Amma and Kofi walked through the palace gardens, reflecting on their journey. The flowers were in full bloom, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of blossoms. "I never imagined that I would end up here," Amma said, her voice filled with wonder. "From a humble servant to a hero of the kingdom. Kofi smiled, his eyes warm and reassuring. You've always had the heart of a hero, Amma. It's your courage and determination that have brought you here. Amma's gaze softened as she looked at the tranquil garden. I feel like I've learned so much through this journey. About courage, about friendship, and about myself. Kofi nodded. We've all grown from this experience. The kingdom is safer, and we've made a difference. As they continued their walk, Amma's thoughts turned to the future. The kingdom had faced a great challenge and had emerged victorious, but she knew that there would be more to come. The world was filled with mysteries and dangers, and the spirit's warnings had reminded her of the delicate balance between the living and the dead. With a renewed sense of purpose, Amma resolved to continue her journey, to seek out the truth and to protect those she loved. The kingdom of Uda was a place of beauty and strength, and she was proud to be a part of its story. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow over the garden. As Amma and Kofi walked side by side, their hearts filled with hope and determination, they knew that the future was bright and full of possibilities. The journey was far from over, and the path ahead was filled with both challenges and opportunities. But with their courage, their bond, and their unwavering commitment to the kingdom, they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. And so, as the night embraced the kingdom of Udu, the story of Amma and Kofi continued, a tale of bravery, friendship, and the enduring power of the human spirit.